Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Business World, for having us over as speakers. Great to have you both. We've been having some conversations. And a great topic, women leaders redefining the DNA of emerging enterprise. So we have today on the panel Ms. Akanksha Bhargava, Chief Executive Officer, PM Relocations.
Hello.
And we have Ms. Dakshita Das, former civil servant and policy expert. Welcome to the panel.
Thanks.
So it's actually very interesting and to have a conversation with both of you. Both of you represent the emerging breed of women leaders who have actually redefined convention and setting new trends. You actually shared that document with me about so many women in Ministry of Finance and across. Today, women are doing exceedingly well at every area, whether it's policy making, whether it's governance, whether it's scientific pursuits, in corporate, in philanthropy. I think women are excelling everywhere. To quote Swami Vivekananda, he had tirelessly worked for the upliftment of women. He said something very interesting. He said, women will shape their own destinies far better than men can ever do. And a lot of the problem that we face today is because men have tried to shape their destinies. And he goes on to say that the thermometer to the progress of a nation is the treatment of its women. So without any delay, let's jump into the topic. We'll start with you. You've actually led the transformation of your company, PM Relocations, from about 2 crore turnover to around 200 crores. It would be interesting to know, get a snapshot of some of the challenges that you faced, how you circumvented it, and especially some of the challenges that you faced as a woman leader. Why don't you talk us through it?
Good afternoon, everyone. So I represent an industry which is highly unorganized. The sound of it is not very women-oriented as people would think. Yes, we deal with a lot of blue-collar team. We have a lot of core jobs like managing partners, vendors, transport. So very, very varied kind of tasks in the entire process. So we relocate families across the world, within India, any pin code, and we don't just move stuff, we pack, move, settle them down, even find them a house when it's needed. So we do an end-to-end solution for relocation. Back in the day when I started, I think I would like to begin from a very, very core subject where, whenever we look at a business, we have perceptions. And for me, it wasn't basically from my end, but I was made to believe that you're entering a space which is not meant to be yours, because there was just nobody in the most remotest location also that was managing at a leadership position. Because yes, it needs a lot of strength, it needs a lot of patience, process, and also the idea of household goods packing, moving, transport, labor, it's never resonated with women, right? So I think that was the first very core step where wherever I started, even when I wanted to make my own team, find partners, find clients, there was always a big question mark whether this is where you belong. Would you be able to do justice to what you're doing? And plus, my dad and my mom built this business, so I had something that was already there, very small, but still something very, very precious there. So when you have to scale up, you're always worried and nervous that what if you don't serve, when you're starting, there's everything to lose, but when you already have something that's been built, you're more nervous about whether you're going to fit the bill or not. So I think from being in a room of only gentlemen to the only women in corporates where admin, HR, procurement is handled by male counterparts, to also being in a warehouse where I'm sitting with my team, which is about 200 people who are blue-collar staff, and I'm the one who's talking to them. So there has been multiple places where I've found my feet. I found what excited me, my intent of doing what I do every day. I think all of that put together made me a very strong person. But of course, scaling up a business which is so unorganized. You need money, and we are bootstrapped. So funds is one thing, building a brand is another thing. And at every point, you're reminded that, are you really at the right place? So till I didn't reach at a point, and I was 21 when I started. At 21, we literally don't know what we're doing with life, right? But I was sitting at a position of growth. I wanted to build a company. I went out and took loans, put my only house on mortgage because I needed overdraft to build the business, saw it all go. A lot of things like that. I think every entrepreneur has a story of failure more than success, which is absolutely going to happen. But yes, when you're told many times that, are you in the right place? Is this what you should be doing when you become a parent? Is this where you should be trading off your life with? So at every step, it was a big question. But I think we should not be telling women or any gender what is meant to be their kind of business. I think everybody, if they decide and connect with that, can achieve anything. So
Excellent. So at every given point in time, you were kind of reminded of the fact that this is not a place that you belong.
Yeah.
And each time you have to kind of circumvent those challenges. Great story, remarkable story.
I mean, imagine when you travel as a young girl and you're going out there, going out aggressively finding clients, you're told probably by someone that you're flying too high or you're spending too much money to do this. So there's always going to be someone telling you that. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Great. Dakshita ji, you've been a civil servant, you've worked in the Ministry of Finance, you still work as independent director in many boards, and in the course of the conversations you were mentioning that you still think that there's not enough representation of women in the corporate sector, although probably we have covered some ground. But what do you think is a realistic picture?
The realistic picture is out there in the open. You have about 56% of Indian companies having 10 to 30% women representation. When I sit on boards, one of the biggest gaps I see is the women HODs sitting across. And largely the woman I see is the woman in HR.
Yeah.
Now, there is something I wish to say here. Sometimes I wonder myself, am I on a board because of my own creditworthiness, or am I there because of the government policy, which forces all of you in the private sector to have one woman on board? So therefore, stories like hers are more inspirational, where you become an entrepreneur, because crawling up in the corporate network is becoming a very big challenge. And there the role of the care economy plays a very important role. So if I can quote a data to you, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation gives you a macro approach to the representation of women in various fields of life. More than 45%, or let's say close to 50% of the women drop out from the work because of the compulsions of care economy. The child, the parent, the health, or maybe whatever. Now, when they try to re-enter once these compulsions are over, they've already lost. So I think the corporate world, government is better. Government does have a lot of representation of women. I don't have the data with me, but it's very visible. Corporate India is still harsh as far as women are concerned.
So representation in today's context is still a problem, and there is a lot of work that needs to be done.
Huge
amount of work.
Huge amount of work, Arijit. I mean, it's a long way to go. You can educate your girls, but you want to make them professional women. Sorry, it's a big bridge.
Yeah.
I think 2 generations. Easy.
Yeah.
So if I can, the World Economic Forum regularly studies the Indian women and compares us to other countries. Our rating is abysmally low. We rank something like 136th amongst a group of 164 countries. And they say it's going to take 5 generations before women achieve parity with men. Now, these are very clear indicators that, as she said, 2 generations. I think some people are fortunate when they have parents who support them into entering corporate world as promoters. But if you want to be the child who did an engineering degree, did your MBA, did your finance, and you want to enter corporate India and make your own mark, sorry, it's a very tough grease pole to climb.
Challenges ahead, a lot of challenges ahead. Akanksha, one of the remarkable aspects of women leaders today is that the fact that they are successful also because they've been able to wear many hats. Right from managing the home, the household duties, managing the children, the responsibilities as a wife, and managing the responsibility as a leader in an organization. This takes a lot of courage, a lot of fortitude. What has been your experience in this regard, and how have you managed this entire wearing of multiple hats?
I think most of the women do that. Like she said, the care economy is, and I think somewhere down the line we are just wired like that. That if there is a family situation there, you will always activate your SOS and you will attend to it before. And it's amazing how beautifully we end up doing that also, and we end up not making the other part also go wrong. So it's very, I think women are just wired differently to kind of act on multiple things together. Having said that, I think when you are on a leadership position, you are at an accountable role, it just becomes very taxing because you are needed to be there to make sure that nothing goes wrong without your absence. And it's the same at home. It's the same with children. You are needed physically, mentally, with every part of your life. And as you grow older, your mind, your body, everything starts slowing down, but your heart doesn't want to. I mean, at 20, I think I could just, I could just fire up. And today I'm like, I have to sleep by 10, otherwise I don't function. So I think your overall system starts slowing down, and also the responsibilities keep adding. So I think there is no formula really. I think for me, I came to a point in my life when I had my daughter. I had built the business in a way that I knew that when I have this opportunity, I want to not make a choice, but I want her to be part of this system in my life. She was 1 month old and I got her to office. I was breastfeeding till she was 5 years. So I went really far with that. We traveled a lot together. I took her to every conference, every meeting. I actually took her to boardrooms and I said, I'm sorry, but I have my child. And she was in a pram, a separate place, and smaller, she was easier. She grew up, it was harder. But my point is, I was lucky to be able to have an ecosystem where I didn't really have to make that choice. It was hard, of course, because when I took her to those long flights, I was the one who was up. I got there, I was the one who was making sure she was eating and whatever that was needed to make sure she's fine. And then I would work all day and then come back because she's missed me, so I want to spend time with her also. So I basically was on like 20 hours routine. So it's obviously harder to kind of juggle everything, and you don't have to if it's not needed. As I said, I was fortunate to be able to bring her to work or take her everywhere. But I think a lot of times women are told that they cannot do some things. If you don't function like this, it will not be right. If you don't give this much time to your child, it's going to affect the baby. I think so much of information just comes which is not needed. There's so much we can do with our own gut. If one wants to do 10 things at a time, let them. If someone doesn't want to do it, they want to take a break, just focus on one thing in life, that's also fine. So too many opinions around always have happened. I mean, this has been a journey that I think every woman has taken right from childhood. But I think it's changing. And for me, I was just lucky. And I built my journey in a way that I wanted to enjoy both parts of my life. And here I am, still doing what I love doing.
Excellent. I think what you rightly mentioned, societal frameworks actually bog us down. And it's the societal framework that has kind of put chains around how much women can achieve. And those chains are being broken today. People like you, people like Dakshita ji, who have done so well in corporate life, are actually breaking those chains. And millions of women today are breaking those chains because they are, by their gut, by their instinct, redefining what women leaders can do. And I'll, by the grace of the Lord, before we finish the session, I'll talk a little bit about Nari Shakti, why women are able to do this. Dakshita ji, a question to you. You were talking about this whole aspect of women dropping off. And that I think is a serious issue. You were talking about it. Why do you think women are dropping off, and what are some of the larger reasons? And is anything major being done about this whole issue?
So let's rewind to the journey of middle class India, or even you go into rural India. Oh, you must stop. You must come first in class. You must get into an engineering college. You must get into a college. You must do this. Now, what happens is family sizes have become smaller. So you also have an advantage for girls when they enter colleges, placements. But how do you retain them? Are you changing the basic psyche? You are not. And that's where the failure of our educational system is. We are still first generation discordant node between reality and aspiration. You are only giving very token lip service to growth and development without changing the ecosystem. In my talks everywhere, and I must share this with the audience, I always quote the example of Annu Rani, the javelin thrower. I'm sure so many of you must be aware of her. What a marvelous story. The story runs like this, that she comes from Meerut, one of the more dominant male, I can say. And her brother found her throwing sugarcane. And he said she has great strength. And he said that why don't we train her? Now Meerut and all have colleges. Sports college, now it has one of the largest universities. It's also the center, the manufacturing of cricket bats. So there is a culture of sports. But for the brother to encourage the sister was a very big thing because her father was opposed. Yet you see her today, she's won a very creditable gold medal in the Asian Games. I follow her. I follow her because for me she epitomizes where a system, an ecosystem can support a child to grow, and with a very fair sense of gender neutrality. Physically you have problems, sure, everybody has problems. I've worked in an environment in the Ministry of Finance where we were 4 or 5 women and we were preparing budgets and we were up the whole night long. But I think all of us survived because we had very supporting spouses. And if we say, you know, that because you're officers, you had staff and this and that, it's all crap. It's only a question of there being total gender neutrality in the work, in the home, and that operating at the workspace. So yes, the Nari Shakti bit which you talk about is very important because India has got a huge demographic dividend we need to capitalize upon. The world is looking upon us not only as a consumer economy, it's also looking for giving the right kind of labor. But for that labor to come, we need to quickly change mindsets. We need to have a brother of Annu Rani. I think the real hero in this story is him. You know, you need to have a support system which promotes you into saying, taking that little step forward. You know, I will not sit at home and do some pedestrian job, or in the labor force be reduced to doing the more menial jobs. I will skill myself and I will ensure that I retain myself in the workforce.
Excellent, excellent. Akanksha, just I want to ask you, what do you think are the softer character attributes that women need to inculcate or need to strengthen to be successful in the modern day?
That's a very tricky one because, you know, whatever are the norms, I don't believe in them. Like,
From
people used to tell me
from your life experience, what
yeah,
do you
I mean, when you're running a business and you're an entrepreneur, you're expected to have, you know, never mix emotional or professional life and a lot of things like that. You need to be stronger to take decision. You should be firm. You should not get too close to your people. But I don't believe in all of this. I genuinely believe that it's so important to be yourself. Now, whatever that version of yourself is, if you're someone who is a certain, you know, works in a certain manner, like, you know, there is a way your processes works in the system, that's fine with you. And if you're someone who genuinely takes decision from the heart, there is no problem there as well. Because there is no right or wrong ever established. Yes, you should be disciplined, you should have, sometimes, we give ourselves very less credit in life. I think one thing, whenever I'm in a room like this and I'm talking to someone very exceptional, or just a normal girl who's working really hard, like 4 o'clock she gets up, makes the food for the entire house, then comes to work and then works all day, goes back home, takes care of the children, goes to bed at 10. I think that's exceptional too. So I feel that they are not given enough credit, and when they're given also, they don't know how to take it. So we just end up underplaying ourselves so much all the time and trying to just be the push ourselves and saying that this is not enough. But that is one thing I feel should be developed more, and that will happen when we start encouraging each other. There is a huge gap where women can support women in a very massive way, and that will change a lot of things in the world. But when it comes to decision making, when it comes to working in a certain way in life, there is no right or wrong. I have taken a lot of decisions from my heart. I have a team of close to 500 people now. Out of them, 70% have been with me over 10 years. So a lot has gone into that relationship. A lot of things that I had to overlook or change in myself to be in that space. But that's fine, and I would hear
But you build
people
the team,
saying that
yeah.
how are you so involved and how are you so aware of everyone's problem. But I said they give me so much time. The office is like the first home they have. It's not even a second home. You spend so much time at work. So as a leader, we are told again that you should not be thinking from your heart. You're too sensitive, you're too emotional. Those are negatives. But I think those are positives. If you believe in them, they are positives. But we should give ourselves more credit in life, for sure.
Excellent. Pat yourself on the back and support the community. Women should encourage women. That's a
Absolutely.
great point. Dakshita ji, since you've been a civil servant, one question I would like to pitch to you is, at the policy level, what are some of the things that can be done to increase representation of women? I mean, a lot of things are being done. Few things.
Fair enough, Arjit. The amount of schemes the government has come out with, financial enablement, you have that entire JAM trinity, the Jan Dhan accounts, and I'm talking rural India, because urban India is choice-ridden. Guys like you and I, our daughters, our sisters, our mothers, if we are not working, I think we are wasting our education. But let's talk rural India, let's talk lower middle class, let's talk a class lower. For them, the government has done huge amount. But yet again, we come back to one thing, the failure of our education system to instill the correct values with each other. Now, when you create something like a POSH Act, or you create something like a Sexual Harassment Act, it shouldn't be that in the workplace you say, I'm not engaging a woman, my God, I'm going to be likely to be in trouble, which is the psyche which is there. You've got to actually have modules in the schools which encourage a fair amount of gender neutrality, which is the word I used earlier. I mean, we've got to de-link the awareness of a gender with the performance in the workplace. And that can only happen when we start teaching the right way in schools. And that's where I'm yet to see modules which are being taught in schools which bring in a principle of equity. Otherwise, we have a very, very fair advantage as far as girls are concerned, provided they are willing to avail of it. And we need to also be very cognizant of the fact that we cannot create an India where the male feels that she's got a better deal. I faced it when my child was doing campus placements. He said they've got a quota for girls. Today, 8 years down the line, ask him, how many of them are still there? Some of them just moved out. The boys hang on, because still in our minds, it's an occupational necessity. So we have the opportunities available for urban, middle class, upper middle class. It's for people down below where we need to have a very, very strong educational system. And let me tell you, Arjit, even now, with my age, I continue to face glass ceilings. Even in the entities where I'm there right now, there is a glass ceiling. But it's okay. It's my job to break it.
Absolutely.
And I can break it with my experience. So what I think is that the government needs to have a greater input at the educational level And I hope that in future award ceremonies like this, we have people coming up with educational modules, you know, which can be replicated. And second thing which we need very clearly is greater showcasing of role models. She spoke of mentorship. I say that we need to have greater successful, ordinary successful women out there to teach the next woman waiting in line that, hello, this is the way you can enter the gate.
So, two great points. One is starting at the education system, the sense of building the sense of equity, and showcasing role models. Great points. Great discussion. Before we'll have a couple of questions from the audience. I would also like to, since this is a great opportunity, and we talked about Nari Shakti, and a quick 2-minute thing on Nari Shakti, by the grace of the Lord, I'll talk about. In our country, for thousands of years, women have been relegated to the background. Women have been oppressed for the last many years. But silently, the women's force have been a silent supporter. The twin values of our nation are renunciation and service. And this is specially manifest in every woman. We've seen our mothers who are selfless. And this is the characteristic because of which India has been able to sustain, no matter how many onslaughts India has faced. The same India, the same nation in the Vedic age. Are you aware of Panchakanya? Anybody aware of Panchakanya? Who are the Panchakanyas? The Panchakanyas of the Vedas are Draupadi, Namodri, which is Ravan's wife, Mandodari, Ahalya, right? These are the Panchakanyas. Mandodari was famous why? Because Ravan's wife was a very spiritual woman, a very erudite woman. Similarly, in the Vedic age, we had somebody called Gargi. Is anybody aware who's Gargi? Anybody aware? Gargi was the Brahma Vadini. A Brahmagnya is somebody who's got knowledge of self, a man. And a woman who's got knowledge of self is Gargi. Gargi entered into a debate in the court of King Janaka. She actually defeated 8 sages and then got into a debate with Yajnavalkya. And Yajnavalkya started feeling uncomfortable. In the same land, we produced Rani Jhansi. At 29, Rani Jhansi said, "Main Jhansi nahi dungi." And she died in the battlefield. So we must understand what is Nari Shakti. Ab Shakti ka matlab kya? Ma, Jagadamba. Now everything that is actually plying in the external universe is energy. And the same energy is plying through everybody. Every man, every woman. And this Shakti, we have to, ye Shakti ko hama jagana hai. And in every woman, there is a special manifestation of Shakti. That is why a mother can achieve so much. In spite of the work pressure, she can do all this. I will end the session with a interesting advice from Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda says that Sita, Mother Sita, has gone into the vitals of our race. We are all, every man or a woman, we are the children of Sita. If our women have to be educated and we have to modernize our women, we cannot leave the ideals of Sita. Every woman has to grow and modernize along the footprints of Sita. She says that in the land of Savitri and Sita, we see tremendous amount of spirit of service, courage, fortitude, and reverence, like I've seen anywhere in the world. Then he says that if we can preserve these beautiful characteristics and educate our women intellectually, the Indian women of the future will be the ideal woman of the world. So with that, we will actually pay a tribute to all the women of India and to the panelists. You're doing a fantastic job. And one main message, men, before talking about women's empowerment, also have to understand what women are. And women also have to understand that as they're modernized, they cannot forget the ideals of ancient spirituality, of Vedic wisdom, the ideals of Mother Sita. Thank you so much.